Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale of Charmed. A awesome episode, just awesome finale in general. It was so good, dude. A lot of interesting things went down about this episode, so let's break it down. Immediately picking up after Macy brought Galvin back, and I was like, okay, so what's going to happen? Is he not going to have a soul or something like that? But it's like, no, he's back and he doesn't know what happened. And obviously Macy's kind of keeping it hidden from him. Obviously, like, everyone, Harry, Mel, and Maggie are a little freaked out because it's like, this is unprecedented territory. Is Macy still Macy? And that's kind of where a difference of opinion kind of immediately hits, because Mel, it's like, oh, this is terrifying, but Maggie's like, it's fine, because it is Macy. Macy's always who she is. She would never hurt us. But then again, it's like, that's before she became imbued with the source of all evil. Then, Macy's overhearing this entire conversation about them, and Harry being freaked out. They find out about her bringing back Galvin, and it's like, whoa, you're going against the natural order. Like, obviously, you're not even giving him a choice in this situation. It's like, what? Excuse me? That coming from you, Mel, the one who rewrote her girlfriend's history? Come on now. So I thought that was so... I mean, obviously, it's, and even Mel kind of was like, yeah, you kind of got a point there. But it was so interesting. It's like her mind, Macy's mind is like, I got this power. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try, because in her mind, it's like, I'm going to fix everything. Because obviously Galvin, it's so sad too, because like Galvin's sacrifice meant like, oh, him coming back to life meant that everyone he sacrificed his life to save would die. Because basically the universe would get the price that was necessary. Because he's back, well, let's get rid of all those people he ended up saving. But it's like, oh, they died? I'll just bring them back. Galvin automatically knew something was kind of wrong. Mel didn't even have to really tell him. He kind of already knew, and she kind of agrees with him. And he's like, you need to, get whatever that power is inside of Macy, get it out. Because the fact is, I don't belong here. I was content with dying. I made peace with it because I knew it was me saving other people's lives. And those people's lives are now threatened because of everything, too. It didn't come up, but obviously that includes Nico too. But obviously, I think that shows you too that Mel wasn't even focused on that, because that whole conversation didn't come up, and that didn't kind of get thrown in her face. But you could also make the argument that potentially plays a role in, because she was affected by the Harbinger as well, So there's that. So obviously they're a little freaked out, but it's like in Mel's case, she's kind of like, well, there's a lot to kind of break down about that, obviously, because Parker brought up something interesting when Maggie went to visit him, and it's like, basically a source kind of amplifies any insecurities you have. Like in Parker's case, it's like his mom was worried that like if you became the source, you'd do whatever your dad wanted you to. Because in Parker's case, he was so intent on satisfying his dad and being everything his dad wanted him to. So as a source, he'd be like, oh, I do whatever you want to. It amplifies that. And in Macy's case, her insecurity is she has abandonment issues, being abandoned as a child. Now she understands the circumstances around it, but she still feels abandoned. And obviously, Harry's trying to talk to her, but she's talking about, oh, you do know I can read minds now, too. And it's like, oh, okay, so that makes things a little weird and awkward. But I'll circle back to that eventually. But Macy has it in her mind, it's like, my sisters are scared of me. Everyone's scared of me. Don't worry. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to make everyone feel safe by bringing Mom back. And so she, to me, is a fantastic aspect of this episode, is the fact is that she rewrote history. Now, obviously, this is me, comparing and contrasting again, but I can't help but make a comparison. It reminds me, and I think they did a good job of not kind of being similar, but obviously doing their completely own different thing. And that's when Cole tried to rewrite history between him, because obviously he wanted him and Phoebe to be together, so he rewrote history when he, basically joined the Avatars and became as powerful as he did. And I love that because, in Cole's case, he did it one time. Macy did it multiple times throughout this episode. She was on some God level stuff. Because the thing is, in Cole's case, when he rewrote history, he went to being back who he was at that point in time. Wasn't his demon named Balthazar, or whatever the case may be? He went back to being a regular demon, then an all-powerful demon. Macy, anytime she rewrote history, she still stayed on some God level stuff. And it was kind of interesting. Because at first it's like, okay, Mom's back. But because Marisol's still alive, the girls ended up growing up knowing they were witches. Because the moment they're what's going on with Mom? Because obviously the curse is still in play, because it's like curse was made so that if they were together, one of them would die as a part of the sacrifice. And then you have like Mel and Maggie being, oh, she must be a demon. It's like, oh, so that means you're aware of your powers and everything, that world in this particular reality. But for Macy, her desperate need to try and fix everything, it's like the fact of the matter, she starts blaming Mel. And it's so interesting because it kind of comes full circle, because in her mind, it's like, you were always the one that had the biggest issue with me, because like at the beginning, Mel was kind of the most standoffish when it came to Macy. And so now she's willing to rewrite history. Instead of like, her being the sacrifice, she made it so that Mel ended up being the sacrifice, so Mel had to be kept away from their mom. But it also, in creating that reality, she also pushed Maggie away too, because like she was very overprotective of her mom, always needing to know where she was going, because she was so desperate to keep their mom alive, because in her mind it's like, if I keep our mom alive, I keep us together, I keep us safe, I keep everyone content, that means I fixed everything's good, no one has to die. She's so I like to think that in those realities she still got with Galvin, but I like to think, since it wasn't a focus at all, I think for her she got so fixated on the thought of keeping her mom alive that everything else kind of fell to the wayside. It doesn't matter as long as mom's alive. It's kind of interesting because obviously Harry in one reality was like, don't I know you? And Macy was like, nope. She got her and Nancy out of there. I thought that was kind of interesting. I love Nancy being like, oh, you can't really do that unless you're some kind of god or something. And then Macy's eyes go, and she's like, oh, you are some kind of god or something. But it was just kind of interesting, like I say, all these different realities. It's also interesting too because we actually went to the place where, Mel and Harry ended up crossing paths and everything, and I love it's almost kind of like them kind of their beginning of the season, talks a little bit, her being like, wait, you're running kind of like that, that department at the school and everything like that. I just love that conversation. But then immediately they kind of get hit with their heads hurt, their nose start bleeding. It's like, wait, there's some memories colliding on brains. I'm like, that's so interesting because that kind of works with the whole like Mel and Nico situation too, so it all kind of comes full circle in certain regards. And like basically they went to where the white lighters or their power comes from, which is interesting. It's just like that little taste in it. I feel like that could be potentially something going forward, but it's like apparently that's how you restore your original memories when white lighters retires. Like, what does retirement look like for a white lighter? Like, I guess it's like once you continue your immortality, maybe at that point in time you go back to living like a normal human for the rest of your life. I'm guessing, I don't know, but I guess it's like once you retire you can go back to having your memories. I mean, I'm sure that won't really do you much good, at least in the case of Harry, because it's like, well, his son has grown up and become a grandfather, so there's that aspect to it. But you still wonder, like, is that how that whole situation works, or do you keep your immortality? I'd figure when you're retiring, you kind of lose your immortality and stuff like that. Obviously, like, you start rapidly aging, so maybe that's the point to kind of like, time catches up to you, but you remembered everything that you needed, like you've done what you wanted. Like, I wonder how does the whole retirement thing work too? Like, do you make that choice? Do you just get straight up fired like Harry kind of did? Like, what, I guess like being someone's guardian angel, kind of you eventually just kind of want to step away from it, so it hits retired. I don't know. It was just kind of an interesting thing. Maybe we'll kind of go dabble in that later on, but I thought it was so interesting. It's like they took the potion, everyone did, because even Maggie, I love it where it's kind of like Mel's like, oh my god, is this what Maggie becomes like without growing up with me? She's like Olivia Jade. I was like, nice comparison, very very topical, so I thought that was kind of interesting. But they both remember and everything, and they're trying to fix everything. But, Macy's still trying her best because, and it's sad too, because everything about what Macy's doing is because of her abandonment issues, because for her, it's like, she feels like she's constantly been abandoned in her life. First, their dad, Maggie and her dad, then their mom, and now Galvin. It's too much for her. And, for her, it's just like, because she feels like no one's going to be around her. Like, I think it's a combination of, I need this power, yet this power is what's scaring everyone away. But to be fair, they're going to run away from me. They're going to leave me anyway. Like, her abandonment issues run deep, because every time she finds someone she can love in her life, they end up being gone from her life, and that's kind of hard for any person to kind of deal with, but especially her circumstances. Like I said, the source is just amplifying what's already there. I mean, that's the whole point, to kind of poke at that and use it against her. And so at one point she rewrites reality and makes it a reality where she didn't exist. And it's so interesting too because, gosh, during the technically the second reality rewrite where Mel was the sacrifice, is interesting because he made a point, because Harry made a point to be like, oh, you still have your powers even in this reality, because there are certain things, even as powerful as Macy is, she can't kind of change destiny. The world needs the charmed ones. You were always destined to be the charmed one, so that's why your powers are still there even in this alternate reality. And I like that being a thing. It's like, in some shape or form, it's always going to work out like that. But the other reality they ended up in was one without Macy ever being around, because she thinks everyone's better off without her because of like all the problems she's causing. Because for her, it's like no matter what she did, their mom still ended up dying. Like, you know, Destiny found a way to kind of make it so that she died, and she started thinking it was other people. But it's like, no, at the end of the day, she starts turning inwards, and it's like, no, it's me. I'm the problem. And it's like I said, it's so sad because she's so self-destructive. It's like that power, you know. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. So that reality without her, it's so sad too. We don't get to experience a lot of those realities. I wonder what that reality is like, the one where Macy wasn't around. I mean, to be fair, I guess like supernatural monsters and demons like run rampant. The walls are boarded up and everything. They have to explain everything to their mom. Like, wait, what? You know? Harry kind of looked pretty roughed up too, so I guess there were some demons and stuff out there causing havoc. Like I said, we didn't get to really see, but I would have loved to kind of know what that reality was like. I'm sure that wasn't the best reality. I feel like amongst any of those realities, that was probably the worst, where like things really potentially went to shit. It was probably kind of like humanity versus all evil, you know? Kind of humanity being the last line of defense against evil, probably not even being defense at all, just being the only thing that's standing in evil's way from, you know, completely and utterly killing humankind. So I just think that was kind of fascinating. But Marisol helps them find a way to potentially help Macy, and so they have to go back to the point, because this is all kind of like a byproduct of the power of 3 being ruptured, and so they have to go back to that point in time where that was. And for them, it's like the moment, like at the end of last episode, right before she brings Galvin back, and Mel tries to talk her down, but Macy didn't want to listen, because for her it's like, she wants to bring Galvin back, but it's like, you know, still believing. It's like, no, you guys are going to abandon me. I don't believe you, that you will be my sisters, that you'll always be by my side. It's like, just go away. I will make sure that you're okay. And now they kind of have to have that conversation. At least Maggie brings it up. Like, do we have to vanquish our sister? It's like, no, not even going to go down that route. We're going to save her and be there for her. And when the time comes, the power starts going rampant and out of control. But it's like, we're not going to leave here, Macy. We're going to be here by your side. And that's enough to kind of get her to calm down. And it's like knowing that, you know, Mel and Maggie and Harry will always be there for her. And she actually believes it, because it's like, you are here for me right now. You could easily get away for safety, but you're willing to suffer any danger just to stay here by me, to let me know that it's okay. And I like that look of like, when they're like, you know, each one of them being like, oh yeah, the witch of time, the witch of emotion, the witch of space. And it's like calling upon specific gods, and like ended up like using the power of 3 to pull out the source of all evil's power, and it went inside the pendant and it broke it into 3 pieces. Like, now that's some holy crap, that's some fascinating shit, dude. And it's like, okay, so we're going to scatter these at 3 different corners of the earth, and then Harry's going to wipe our memories, because no one should know where this is. We got to keep this buried deep. So that in itself was so fascinating. And obviously each one of them is kind of dealing with everything, trying to figure everything out now. You know, it's like, you know, Macy figuring out, like, you know, it's like for so much, her entire life, she kind of felt like, you know, she should be alone, almost like she deserved to be alone, that basically, you know, that, you know, she didn't deserve this family, she didn't need a family, but now she realizes how wrong she is. She's glad to be there for her sisters and have her sisters be there for her, and like they can laugh and cry and smile together. It's such a beautiful family moment. I love it. And then you have, you know, each one of them dealing with their own things. Like, obviously Mel kind of took what Macy went through. It's like, you went through all of that because, you know, you kind of went against nature to try and save mom, you know, because their mom sacrificed herself not once but twice. Because even in that other reality, it's like, oh, I know I'm going to die, but that's the way things are meant to be, so that everything works out for you guys, that I need my girls to be okay and together. And so when it's all said and done, you have, Mel dealing with the Nico situation, because it's like the whole conversation of like, oh, what she did to Galvin. She didn't give Galvin a choice, but like she realizes I did the same thing to Nico. So she's going to go to see Nico. So she goes to say goodbye. So also, I completely forgot about this. It's such a dope little thing. When Mel and Harry were trying to get the potion for memories, Mel ended up using her bracelet to fast forward so they can try the different combinations quick. I was like, that's such a neat locksmith thing. I love the application of that. I just figured I should point that out. But then, Mel goes and visits Nico, and you see she kind of freezes time and they kind of wave to each other. And I guess that was her way of kind of saying goodbye. What that necessarily entails, I wasn't 100% sure. Maybe I didn't really catch it. But obviously, she still kept the ring on. So what that means for her and Mel going forward, I think she's still, after everything, I think for her, she's still dealing with the fact is of what happened and everything. The fact is that she's got the ring back on and everything, I think speaks volumes of okay, how she feels. But, Mel is like, after I made that choice for her, I can't be in her life anymore. I think that's not something I think it's up to Nico to kind of make that decision. So I think Nico is going, especially because it's not like Nico's life has been erased. Like she forget all about the supernatural world. It's like, no, she remembers the supernatural world now too. So once you are part of that, there's no unseeing it. So I doubt her and Mel are done. So it's going to be interesting to see where things potentially could go for them in the future. I think there's going to be a lot of crossing paths, but you're probably going to have Mel trying to avoid her, because Nico might call her, probably called off her engagement to Gretchen too, and that's a whole thing. Not Gretchen, Greta, right? Yeah. So that's probably a whole thing in itself. Then, Maggie and Parker, because for Parker, he doesn't want to be around her when he still doesn't have complete control of his demon side. And the sad thing is he doesn't even have his mom around to kind of help him deal with that. So it's something he kind of has to, deal with on his own. And, he wants her to come with him, but it's like, she has her sisters. This is where she's meant to be, and he understands. So she's like, promise me you'll come back when you got your demon side under control. And he's like, I promise. And I love that when she's kissing, it's not just hearing his thoughts. I think she's kind of pushing her thoughts so he knows deep down how she feels. I think she kind of telepathically sent her emotions to him, and he says goodbye. It's like, you hope things kind of work out for them, that they find some way around this. Because it's not like Parker wants to keep his demon side. He pushes it away. But maybe it'd be something in the future that makes it so he's okay to keep his demon side. Because she accepts him for his demon side. But for him, it's like his demon side could be unpredictable. That's still that evil in him. I'm curious about, Macy too. I think that's still always going to be a part of her as well. But I'm curious to see how she handles that going forward. The whole demon side of things. Is it going to be a thing of will she tap into her evil side anymore? She doesn't have the needle anymore, but she might find a different way to tap into it. Will this experience make her reluctant to kind of even use her demon side at all? I don't know. Kind of an interesting thing. There was that conversation. This is what I meant when I said I was going to circle back to it. It's the whole thing of yeah, you're not supposed to read your white lighter's mind. And she's like, right, but do you want to talk about what you were thinking? And he was like, let's pretend like that's not the case. I'm like, what was he thinking? And part of me was thinking, you don't think it was him and Macy type of situation? Because I think I had alluded to that before, just how close they were getting. I was like, obviously a white lighter and there with their charge, kind of a forbidden thing, which I'm like, hey, maybe they could be the Leo and Piper of this situation. I know I can't help it. But like I said, I'm a fan of the original show, so obviously I'm going to make comparisons, not to be oh, it sucks more this way. It's just funny comparisons of oh, potentially that could be them kind of doing their own thing with this, paying homage or, to the original series in their own way, while kind of putting their own flair to it, So that's what I think is kind of interesting. But what I really like too, is when they come back home, it's oh, here's Chloe the Pixie, and there's, oh, Goatman. It's actually Seder, but okay, and a whole bunch of supernatural creatures are there, and it's oh, what's going on? It's well, the fact of the matter is, we heard about what you did. Oh my God, you're the charmed ones. You did an amazing job. Yeah, but the elders are gone now, and you guys are kind of the next thing, the closest to authority. I'm like, oh my God, the charmed ones being kind of basically the elders. I think that's so interesting. Which is interesting too, because let's not forget that was actually kind of a storyline in the original Charmed series where like a lot of mystical creatures kind of turned against the Charmed one. It's part of the whole plot of like the final season, because for them they kind of felt like the Charmed ones kind of became self-centered. They only cared about themselves. It's like your responsibility as a Charmed when you're so busy with wanting a normal life. That whole, situation. So I don't know, but for now it's all good. But it's so interesting to think that like, oh man, we're kind of the elders and stuff like that, because that was something I was curious about too. It's like, well, how does that whole system work? I mean, obviously there's other white lighters too, even though we don't come across too many of them, but obviously there's other white lighters. So what does that mean with this whole situation of like, who do they take orders from? Are we going to see them potentially, pop up and it's like, oh, Charmed ones, what should I do? Obviously some new rising witches and stuff like that. Will we see them cross more with them? And I don't know. It's so fascinating, like I say, it's got its somberness to it, because obviously you still have to say goodbye to Galvin, but understanding that he sacrificed his life so many other people can live. It hurts, sure, but that's just kind of like hurt you have to live with, but know that that's hurt you don't have to go through alone, because you've got your family by your side to help you. Charmed has been renewed for a second season, which I'm so excited about. Dude, I don't think I've ever been this in love with a reboot before. Like, I think this is like only comparison I can make is, I guess, like Spider-Man Homecoming, but this show does such a good job, because like I love the original Charmed series, and just to see them take it and kind of do their own thing with it, and just like this show is so good. It's so fun too, and like I love like all the changes they've made, like going in different directions on their own. Like, to be fair, I know a lot of bigger plot points in the original series, but I feel like there's still good chunks of the original series I don't remember. So, but it's still not. So there might be even more similarities that maybe I'm not aware of, but either way, I'm still loving. I'm so excited to see what they do with season 2. Obviously, once again, like the powers of, the source are still out there, which is so interesting too, because let's not forget that's also the source of energy where, the power, that's also the flame. That's where the power of demons and witches come into play. Maybe some of the witches will try and track it down. To be fair, no one's going to know except for them, but I guess the whole point could be like try and recover their memories. As we see, recovering memories is a possibility. So, I mean, obviously the battle of good versus evil is never done, but they are the Charmed ones after all. But it's still so interesting, because like everything, it kind of ends on a note with like, obviously there's open enough storylines left open enough to be like, okay, you can obviously see the continuation in all three sisters' cases. Like obviously the whole Parker situation with Maggie, obviously the Nico situation with Mel. Obviously Maggie's still dealing with her demon side. Once again, whatever the hell it was that she saw inside of Harry's head that he's like, let's pretend. Like, I gotta know what that was. Is it what I thought it was, or is it something else? I don't know. But obviously there's enough storylines open in it that you're like, oh yeah, like obviously there's going to be another great evil. What that is necessarily, we don't know. But because they ended up defeating, like, the original series, they ended up defeating, like, the source of all evil pretty early off in the series. But obviously that kind of circled back around either way. I mean, to be fair, it's not like the source is completely dead either. I mean, like, once again, it's split up into 3 pieces, so trying to track it down is going to be a little bit more complicated, but someone's going to rise to that occasion. We've dealt with, like, one demon family, obviously, Alistair and Hunter, but, there will most likely be others, and I'm just curious to see how that all ends up playing out, what new challenges the sisters have in store for them. It's also going to be interesting, too, because let's not forget about Maggie potentially going back to Kappa and everything, how complicated that's going to be, because, like, oh, yeah, her and Lucy. It's like, yeah, this is going to be her interacting with Lucy, no longer being controlled by Alistair. That's got to be something to be considered, too. Are we going to see, Mel try to move on, get another girlfriend? Well, what about Jada? Let's not forget Jada kind of went on a run, so there might be something there which might complicate things, because like, oh, Jada and Nico, kind of like a love triangle situation, which that totally could be very interesting, because let's not forget Jada is the only one who ended up surviving that, the Sarkana massacre, so... And there's also the whole conversation that's come up before about, like, their expanding abilities. To be fair, their abilities have expanded this season, like, because there are new tools and everything, like, obviously Maggie's staff and, Mel's, like, blades, as well as the wristbands, and Macy got the necklace, the pendant, so I'm curious about beyond that, because that's obviously just meant to be like, oh, amplify and give them a lot more control over their abilities, but will they, amplify and turn it other ways? Obviously, like, we see Mel kind of going, like, being able to manipulate time. Obviously, without these, eventually she'll be able to do that on her own, which, once again, something even Piper never did. Piper always froze time. I don't remember her ever necessarily rewinding, if not even fast forwarding time. I don't remember her really even doing something like that. Obviously, like, no one can do what Maggie's done. I guess the closest thing is maybe Paige with her, like, situation of, like, because Maggie's using energy, and I guess you could almost compare it to Paige's, like, white lighter thing, but that's more telekinesis, like, Macy's situation. So it's different. As well as teleportation / telekinesis, but still. But, like, so, even Maggie's situation, like I'm saying, is kind of very unique. So I'm so curious to see where their powers will take them in season 2. I'm fine with them just using what they've gotten at near the end of the season to kind of build upon that, or whether they outright just get more abilities. I'd love to see what would happen. I am very, very excited to see what they have in store for us with season 2. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.